On today's show, Laura Heywood Interviews
cast and creatives from Mean Girls the Musical. Taylor Louderman, Henson, Casey Nicholaw, and Kate Rockwell. Welcome to Laura Heywood Interviews. I'm Laura Heywood. It's Wednesday. Are you wearing pink? I am, but that's pretty standard for me. Hot pink is my favorite color, my signature color, you might say. And I love that Mean Girls logo has it plastered all over New York City. This week, I have been listening to the Mean Girls original Broadway cast recording nonstop. There's something about the summer that has me blasting it no matter what I'm doing. I'm dancing around my apartment or powering through a workout or just on my way from one place to another. And as I've been listening, I've been thinking about the actors that have been doing this show for over a year now and how lucky I've been to get to spend time with some of them. So today I'm digging into my archives to bring you 3 different interviews with 4 Mean Girls heavyweights. Taylor Louderman, who plays Regina George, of course, Henson, who's Damien, and Casey Nicholaw, director of the show, who sat down with me together, and finally Kate Rockwell, who is the sweetest person. She steals the show as Karen Smith, and I promise you, Kate is much smarter, but just as lovable as Karen. There's nothing I love more than having the opportunity to dig deep with the artists that make my favorite shows. I take it so seriously, and I'm really obsessed with the idea of representing fans everywhere. That's really what I am at my core. I'm not a critic. I don't ever want to say anything bad about anybody because they're working so hard and making such great stuff. I love learning about them. I love getting all enthusiastic about them. And really, I just want to spread joy, spread love, and Broadway is my favorite means to do so. I'm a professional enthusiast, you might say. So I hope I do you proud with these Mean Girls conversations from the archives of Laura Heywood Interviews. Here's Taylor Louderman. Today's guest is a massive deal. Her name is Taylor Louderman, and she's Tony nominated as Best Leading Actress in a Musical for playing Queen Bee Regina George in Mean Girls on Broadway. I'm in love with this show, and I've known Taylor for years. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So did I do okay pronouncing Regina George?
You did a good job. You got that George in there.
How long did it take you to develop that particular bit?
Pronunciation? I tried it one day in the lab, and it got a laugh. I was like, all right, we're keeping it, and it's been there since.
How do you, can you say it one more time?
Yeah, George. Regina George.
I love it. And she is a massive deal.
Yes, yeah.
In fact, she is the most massive deal at this high school.
Yeah.
She's the queen bee.
She is. It's too bad, right? That the whole school supports this terrible, terrible girl being the queen bee. But a hero comes in and saves the day, don't worry.
Do you think of Regina George as a terrible person?
No, I do feel like we all have bits and pieces of us that are capable of being mean, and it's a matter of, right, whether we choose to be mean or not. And she learns to use her powers for good, I will say, by the end of the show, and I have hope for her. I have hope.
She has some secrets. I'm going to give one away right now.
What?
Her hair is not actually blonde. Her natural color is dark blonde.
It is, yeah. It's too bad.
Talk to me about your relationship with these other 2 girls on the poster with you.
Oh my gosh. Well, Ashley, who plays Gretchen, she and I went to college together at the University of Michigan. Go Blue. Yeah. And Kate was kind of I left college early to Bring It On, the musical, and she was in that with me, and I call that my junior and senior year of college. So I kind of went to school with both of them. But yeah, we have a blast backstage. We don't enter the show for 20 minutes, so we're backstage farting around before we do our entrance, and it's fun. It's fun. It makes, when you do the same thing every night, 8 times a week, you've got to spice it up, and you've got to find newness to it, and these 2 ladies really help me do that.
What are some of the things you mix up?
Well, we'll sing opera backstage before we go on, to whatever's happening on stage, and we'll just be silly. We'll slap each other across the face.
What?
We'll scare each other. If you watch on our
yes,
we scare each other a lot. We just try to have fun, you know, because if we're having fun, we think the audience is having more fun too.
And everyone's nicer to each other off stage than they are on stage.
Oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe it. Yeah, and you know what? That starts at the top. Tina Fey and Casey Nicholaw, our director, they're amazing leaders. Like, they've established this environment where we all feel safe and we all feel like we've got each other's backs. And I mean, when you're working on a project that's bigger than any one person, you really have to come together and understand that it's not about any one of us. It's about this massive story that we're telling and hopefully affecting our audience with. And we're stronger and safer when we watch out for each other. You know.
If only the high schoolers knew that.
No, it's too bad.
In fact, one of the things I was thinking about, the original cast recording is out now, and I've been listening to it basically nonstop. And I was thinking, like, even the nice people in this show have a mean girl streak in them.
Yeah, a little bit. Katie definitely does.
Well, she certainly turns plastic, but even Gray Henson's character, Damien, he has a song where he sings about how he likes to eat cake in front of the girls with eating disorders because it's funny, And I think that's what makes this show so true to life, is as much as a character like Regina George is, I can't even say it normally anymore. As much as a character like Regina is sort of a caricature, there's so much that rings true about this show and what high school is like.
Really like. Yeah, I think that's why the film did so well too, because it is so real and it doesn't take itself too seriously. Yeah, definitely.
How much have you gone back and revisited the film?
No, I can't. There were a few bits that I would go watch on YouTube just to understand the whole scene of it. But, if you try to copy someone, I feel like you're bound to fail because, I have to be honest and true to myself. And so I just dig into the parts of me that are sassy or the parts of me that are mean and try to be honest so that the story can thrive. Especially when you take a film to the stage, you have to be careful about that, because if I were trying to copy Rachel McAdams, you wouldn't get an authentic performance, I feel like, so.
Did you have memories of the movie before you were auditioning?
For sure.
Do you remember where you were?
Get it, loser, we're going shopping. For sure.
What was your first experience with the movie?
No, I don't remember my first experience, but it just hangs out on Netflix, right? Like the film, it just hangs out on all of these TV platforms, or you're watching it play out in real life, So I feel like I have a ton of experience to pull from, experience with the film or real life. So I'm very, very familiar with it.
What was your archetype when you were in high school?
Yeah, everyone asks us. I switched schools after my sophomore year. So
just like Campbell and Bring It On.
Like Campbell, yeah. Art imitates life. So it forces you to bounce around, right? When you enter a new environment, you have to make new friends. So I really was what they call a floater. In the book Queen Bees and Wannabes, which is what Rosalind Wiseman wrote, it's like a self-help book for parents with daughters in girl world. And that's what Tina Fey based the film off of. She references floaters, which, as you can imagine, are people who bop around to different cliques. And I sort of did a little bit of that, which I'm grateful for now because I can pull from it, all these different shoes. So I didn't really stick to any certain group.
You were a cheerleader, weren't you?
No.
You weren't a cheerleader until you
think,
you did play the captain of the cheerleading.
I know. But I played sports in high school, which I think helped with the cheerleading stuff and Bring It On. But and then I was also a theater nerd, as you can imagine.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. What shows were you in when you were in high school?
I did a little bit of Urinetown. That was a lot of fun. I did Peter Pan, which was cool.
Then you did Peter Pan in high school and then got to play Wendy on television?
Yeah.
Wow, that's moving on up. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was cool to relive that. But I'm from a really small town where we didn't have a lot of opportunities for theater or to learn about it. So I would drive an hour into St. Louis, Missouri is where I'm from, and do some of the stuff there at like the all boys schools where I knew they needed girls.
Uh-huh.
So I learned a lot at a bunch of different places, which I think was pretty valuable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So let's go back to Regina. Okay. Where do you think she got her meanness? Like,
Insecurities.
Were people mean to her, do you think?
Maybe. Or probably yes, and probably it was reinforced, right? If she was mean and it worked, and it gave her power, then that's reinforced. She's going to keep doing it, because essentially what she wants is power, which she achieves by her looks, putting other people down. Her parents are wealthy. She's got nice clothes. All of these things I feel like fuel that, and then as her other relationships aren't strong and real, she has to keep doing it to continue being the queen bee.
I feel like her mom's a lot.
Her mom's a lot. Her mom's a lot.
Well, yeah. I feel like the mom's such an enabler and was probably a mean girl herself.
Yeah, and also really insecure. I almost think that her mom is a lot like Gretchen, which in the show they share a reprise of "What's Wrong with Me." It's a song that Gretchen sings. They're a lot alike. I mean, she kind of abuses her mom. She has a sort of an abusive relationship with her mom. That she's the abuser.
Yeah, she says, what is it? She made her mom switch bedrooms because she wanted the master
bedroom. Yeah.
And the mom was like, okay,
whatever you want.
I love the logo of the show. First of all, like, you are front and center looking fierce.
Yeah, it's obnoxious, isn't it? It's everywhere. The other day I was in a cab and I turned over and there it is on a bus. I just like,
which has its own irony. I
mean, right.
Regina and buses, without giving any spoilers, that's not the healthiest relationship.
No, but yeah, it's crazy.
You could say that bus got hit by Regina George.
That's good.
I like this because each one of the plastics, as you're called, has a weapon of choice, or a thing that she can't live without. And for Gretchen, it's her phone, and for Karen, it's her hair, and for Regina, it's her body.
Oh, okay.
And I feel like this has all of that.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think it is that makes Regina sort of snap in that moment where she just decides to sort of have revenge against the school?
Everything she's worked for, her identity, everything is on the line because of Katie. So I mean, that's it. It is just being threatened by her, right? I mean, in high school, we think everything is so, we feel things so much stronger. And like Damien says in the show, we haven't developed, like our brain hasn't fully developed yet. So we don't know how to handle stress. We haven't learned that lesson that like, we're actually happier when we get along with everyone. Even if we don't like someone, it's so much more worth it to treat others with dignity and respect, right? Even in the face of conflict, to say how you feel, but in a nice way.
Yeah.
And life is so much easier when you do that. And why not? Why else are we here? Why else am I on this planet? Not to get too deep, but like, other than to give and make it a better place for other people, So yeah, that's all she's worked for. That's how she values herself. And she has nothing else to live for if not being the queen bee. And hopefully she learns that lesson by the end, that like it's just not worth it. I mean, unfortunately, she has to be in a neck brace at the prom, but man, that humanizes her.
She looks gorgeous in that neck brace.
Oh, thanks.
It's funny thinking about that line about brain development, and then how that ties in, at least the way I watch it, with the song Apex Predator, because I do think that so much of the cattiness, for lack of a better word, that happens in high school does have to do with like evolutionary biology.
Totally.
In the same way that the animals fight for control and power on the African landscape that the character of Katie has come from.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a smart.
Yeah, we language developed and gossip developed as a way to keep communities tight and as a way to watch out for each other. So if somebody's misbehaving in the community, we had gossip to keep them in line. But nowadays, it's not life or death. So we abuse that power, right, to excommunicate people or socially isolate them. And girls do it. Guys use their fists, right, to fight, but girls definitely use language and gossip to do so. It does have a positive influence on society, but we tend to use it, I think, negatively these days. But again, you learn that lesson after you leave high school.
Are you hearing from a lot of high schoolers who see themselves reflected on stage?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be the ones that reach out to me about Regina necessarily.
I identify with your character so much.
They're not going to admit with that, but definitely they reach out, and I know Gray gets a lot of kiddos reaching out to him, but they also just sometimes you'll hear stories about like, hey, you inspired. You, the cast, the show inspired me. And that is so much more powerful than I ever realized. Because even at the end of the day, like if we can inspire someone to go out and even just put a little more effort into, I don't know, their homework or like their finance job or whatever it is, that makes me feel like I'm giving back in a world that feels really selfish sometimes, and that's huge. And then sometimes we get some kids who are like, I was really suicidal last week and I saw this and it made me feel like somebody was telling my story and I feel like I have more worth and that's huge. Yeah. That's huge. And so it means a lot to be able to tell these stories, right? Everyone's worth is non-negotiable. And so to get to do that and send a positive message at night is, I think, the biggest reward for me.
So what I'm hearing you say is that being in Mean Girls allows you to model being nice.
Yeah,
and that's a pretty sweet.
Yeah, right. I never thought that playing the villain that I would feel. I don't know, like I'm making an impact. I was like, oh gosh, playing the villain. Like, how am I going to feel good about this?
Well, I've actually had experiences where people have said things like, I never realized how mean I was being.
Sure.
People think they're just talking to their friends or they think nobody's going to hear or like gossip is like you said, so much a part of our biological instinct.
Yeah.
People don't even realize that.
Well, and
that
especially nowadays, especially like with social media, like I have two little sisters that are in high school and they'll get upset if there's a difference here between this malicious teasing and sort of being left out. Like they'll get upset if girls are at a party and they take a picture and post it online and they weren't invited. And I'm like, that's not bullying.
Yeah.
That's just, we have
FOMO.
Yeah, that's just FOMO. There you go. But what, and this isn't social media related, but what Regina does, which I think makes it hard to pinpoint and target a bully, is this sort of malicious teasing where if you're my target, I know what hurts you, and you've confided in me something like, I don't know, everyone else in the room doesn't realize that it hurts you. They see it as a joke. Yeah. And so I'm funny, but we both know that I just hurt you.
Right.
And that's hard to go tell an adult like this happened or it's hard to pinpoint. But
it's so manipulative.
It's
like when she buys Katie a pair of high heels and is like, this is my present to you. Look how nice I am.
Yeah, but they're terrible shoes.
Well, and we find out she bought them because she knew Katie had never worn heels before and would fall over and look dumb. But you can't go be like, she just bought me a pair of designer heels. That's so mean.
Right. Exactly. Right. And that's what's so smart about her. And again, I hope the audience can leave feeling like, oh, okay, she's going to figure it out and use those powers for good and maybe become the next president.
Do you know that hearing you just say using her powers for good made me realize that Regina George is sort of Glinda?
I was going to say, you're going to Wicked, aren't you?
I mean, do people say that? Have people said that before?
No, because the first one.
When Glinda is getting ready for like the dance and she goes up to Alphabet and is like, you should wear this hat. You're both so smart. Yeah. And everybody's like, ha, 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 ha. She's about to wear this ugly hat. Yeah.
It is.
And she does get turned around and use her powers for good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Have you ever had a prank go wrong?
No, I don't think so.
All right, well, just knock on someone.
Although yesterday in the show, I have to grab a doorknob and walk out the door and slam it, and the doorknob came right off the door with me, and the audience just died laughing. And that's it. At some point, you have to surrender to the fact that this is live theater, and just be like, "Yep." This just happened. And I walked out being like, can we do that every night? Because they rallied.
There's nothing like being reminded that you're in a live theater. That's my favorite thing as an audience member.
Yeah.
I never want to see anybody get hurt, but I want something to happen that night on stage that hasn't happened before and won't happen again.
Right.
Because that's how we're reminded. When something's so slick and beautiful and well rehearsed, it's almost like watching a movie.
Yeah.
And then something happens, like somebody sneezes or something, and you're like, whoa, that's real.
Yeah.
So, get on that doorknob.
The audience tends to really get excited by things like that. And then you've got it. Like one night my mic went out in my neck brace, and I had to go up to Katie's head and start talking, and and the audience like, what's happening? And then they bring out a mic and they all just cheer like, you can do it. So those moments of live theater make it really fun.
I first met Taylor when she was doing Bring It On, and then we've crossed paths through mutual friends multiple times since then, and she's always been so nice. So I really think that you were cast against type in Mean Girls, but you're cast so perfectly too, and your ability to play that nastiness in a way that's both it's not overacting, but you are. I'm feeling
subtle.
suddenly at a loss for words. It is not subtle, but it's striking. And I am such a huge fan of yours. And I am out there every Wednesday in pink trying to win the lottery and the rush tickets at Mean Girls. I can't stop going back. It's really an experience. And I hope everybody goes to see it. Thank you for being with us.
Oh my gosh. Thanks for having me, you guys. Thanks for being an awesome audience.
Yay, it's right. Oh, Taylor Louderman, what a sweetie. If you want to catch up with Taylor now, she is in Mean Girls until September 10th, I think is her last day. And then she's moving on. I'm really hoping it's because her pilot will be picked up. She was cast in the pilot of a new CBS show called The Emperor of Malibu, opposite Ken Jeong, and it's written by Kevin Kwan, who wrote Crazy Rich Asians. As of this morning, it has not been picked up, but it hasn't been passed on yet either. So I'm hoping that she knows something that hasn't yet been announced, and we're going to get to see a lot of Taylor on CBS. Also, on July 22nd, Taylor will be performing alongside a ton of Broadway stars at Feinstein's 54 Below for Broadway Loves Selena Gomez. So you will be able to see her / hear her one way or another. Let's move on to another Mean Girls interview. This was an interview I did with Casey Nicholaw, the director of Mean Girls, and Gray Henson, who is Tony nominated for playing Damien. They sat down together, and we found out that they are actually sort of the same person, and it was easy to fall in love with them both. From Mean Girls, the musical, director Casey Nicholaw and star Gray Henson, who plays Damien. Casey's work includes blockbuster smashes, including The Book of Mormon, Something Rotten, Aladdin, Spamalot, and The Drowsy Chaperone. Gray spent 4 years playing Elder McKinley in The Book of Mormon on tour and on Broadway, and is a total standout in Mean Girls. I love this show so much, and I'm thrilled you're here. Welcome, Gray and Casey.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you for choosing my favorite color to represent this show. Broadway has needed a hot pink show for a long time.
Yes.
Agreed.
Just for you.
I love Mean Girls. I have been back to enter your ticket lottery multiple times, just trying to get in to see your brilliant performance again and your brilliant work, Casey.
Thank you.
What has it been like to have such a strong fan reaction to this show?
Oh, wow. I mean, it's been incredible.
Yeah, it's a wide range of fans, too. The movie came out in 2004, so that was when I was in high school. So our generation's coming and enjoying it and getting a little tipsy and loving it. And then you've got the younger people who are fans of the cute boys that dance in our show and are dying at the stage door, and then
Like you.
like me. No, I'm truly talking about some of the former newsies who are flipping and turning in Casey's choreo. But yeah, it's amazing, and then we get to meet them at the stage door, which is always the best part about performing live.
And one other thing I love about it is mothers and daughters coming together. That I think is really a really cool thing, and that's what I'm always taken by, that there's so many, and I love it because it's got such a cult following, the movie does, and that moms are loving it from when they saw it, and then they're able to share it, and I think it's really nice.
Gray, I read an interview where you said that you don't even remember the first time you saw this movie because it always just felt like it was a part of you.
Yeah, I think a lot of people my age felt that way. It came out and it was like such a loud, vibrant, entertaining movie that was about our people. It was one of the first times I saw an openly gay teen on screen, and I'm from Georgia, a smaller town, and I was gay but not out of the closet at the time, so for me that was is this okay? And he was so comfortable and confident and unapologetically himself, and it was the first time I think I fell in love with the Tina Fey voice, which is so specific and so smart and so quick. And so yeah, it was always a part of my vernacular growing up. And
What
so
was your favorite quote from the movie?
I've always loved everything Gretchen says in the movie because she's a train wreck. But the moment where Gretchen cracks, and then they go into the class and she's talking about Caesar, and she's like, "We should just stab Caesar," and that's always been my favorite part. Yeah.
Casey, you must have dug into the movie really deep.
Yeah.
In preparation for this project.
I did.
Do you have favorite moments from the film?
Well, my favorite line I tried to get Tina to put in, but I love when Regina is on the phone and she's like, "Boo, you whore," and then she hangs up on her. And it never made it in. It was in it for 2 days or something.
Oh, that is...
it's funny, and that was a good thing about Tina, is she wasn't precious about stuff. She knew that we had to make it stage worthy, and a lot of things that people know from the movie didn't end up in it.
But so many good lines from the film did end up in it.
Yeah.
And it's also been updated. Can you talk about how the story itself has been updated so that it takes place now and not in 2004?
Yeah, well, it's also crazy about how relevant things still are, and with bullying and everything else. And, no three-way calling. So it's social media, things like that. But, we didn't really have to change that much. But I think that we sort of changed just in the package of it, with the video screens we use and the way it can move in a contemporary fashion, and just, updating house party stuff. And Tina updated a lot of, vocabulary in it.
She took a lot of the jokes too, and don't want to say improved them, but enhanced them too. Things that you think we're gonna say, we say them in a different way. Karen has a joke at the table about not being, if she's from Africa, why are you white? It's a little different here, and so that's a good surprise. But yeah, definitely everything happens online these days. Everything happens, bullying happens on social media. Everyone's quick to judge and to compare and contrast, and that's what I think high school is about, unfortunately. So to make that a big part of the show is important. Yeah.
I was thinking about you playing Elder McKinley in Book of Mormon, which of course Casey also directed, and how Elder McKinley's whole thing is turn it off. And Damien's thing is turn it on.
Turn it on.
I sort of want there to be a parody song, Turn It On.
There should be. Yeah, they're a little bit in the same vein for sure. And we opened the first national tour of Book of Mormon together, so I got to work with Casey then, but the show had already been super successful at the time. But I always say that Casey cast me in these parts that he should play himself. How good would he be as Damien or Elder McKinley?
The oldest Damien ever.
Oh no. Never.
Watching you two interact backstage, I feel like you're the same person. Just
We do get that a lot. Yeah,
I feel like you would play a young Casey Nicholaw.
Oh, absolutely. That's the next project we're working on.
That would creep me out because he's probably really good at it.
I'm sure.
Oh, gosh, no.
I want you right now to do a Casey Nicholaw impression.
Oh, literally, it's just me smiling. The best person to be in the room with. And the whole team, it's so amazing. And it's so funny that we've never done an interview together, but the two boys of the Mean Girls, normally it's, so saturated with all the ladies who we love. But the gays who love them. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, there is a special place in this show for the men, and especially Damien. I mean, he is such a beloved character, and I feel like you're bringing him to life perfectly.
Thank you so much.
He is, and also the thing that's great about the whole creative team is that we wanted to write for the people that we have, and Gray has such a, is so charming. And one of the things we got in DC was we are missing Damien in Act 2. And I think it's because he does Where You Belong at the beginning of Act 1, and everyone just falls in love with him and thinks they're going to see more of him, and then they don't. And so the song Stop, the big tap number, was one that we added right before New York.
Yeah, it was brand new.
Yeah, we did it in rehearsals, and that was all new, just based on Gray, and actually based on what Tina wanted to say about women making girls making bad decisions. Everybody really, but girls making bad decisions before they think it through. And then Damien's like, oh yeah, not just girls, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that reminds me of the line that Karen has, which there's some talk about bad decisions, and she goes,
Yeah.
people really need to I don't.
And I don't understand why boys feel the need to do that in the first place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
about the sending and sharing of the nude pics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody should really teach boys not to treat girls that way.
Exactly.
Karen's got some truth bombs in the show.
Yeah, she does.
Well, that's the thing, is that I think that's a perfect representation of this show, that is this hot pink and these hot bodies and this like funny, iconic brand that I think people are quick to be like, oh, it's like, just like a light, fun thing. But the fact is, there's real heart in this. There's real important messages in it. The source material that Tina originally worked from is not, it's not fluff, and it's not even comedy.
No.
It's like a help.
It's like
book,
it's a
self-help book.
Self-help book.
Belt.
It's a self-help book. Yeah.
Right. Just choreographing and directing a show at the same time, does that just flow evenly into each other, or do you have to like put one hat on and take it off and put another one on?
No, I think it all flows. I like doing both because I like having both come from the same voice, and I think it's just what I like to do. You know what I mean? And it's that to me is one of the fun parts, because I started as a choreographer. I mean, I started as a dancer, and then as a choreographer, and I love telling stories through dance. So I think that it only helps that I'm able to keep the story going through the numbers, and for the most part, not stopping just to do dance for dance sake, making sure it feels like it's part of it, especially when you're doing a comedy. You can't, be laughing, and then not be laughing at almost someone's dancing and watching them finish. You know what I mean? You have to just keep it going and sort of have fun in the numbers too.
Do you still dance?
Not really. No. I do dance, but as far as doing lots of numbers, I just don't. I mean, what happens is, because the director hat is so all-consuming, I do pre-production pretty early, so that I've done all of that. Then I basically give that hat to my associate. So because I have to have 2 rooms going at all times. So I'll go back and forth from the dance to the acting room, but I'll leave John McGinnis, who's amazing, in the dance room a lot of times.
Yeah. What about taking class and stuff? Like, I feel like you're
not anymore. I took it for
Yeah.
I took classes for so long, but I do love dancing.
Do you know what I love is that I saw you in your Broadway debut when I was 13 years
did?
old, and you were in Crazy for You.
Oh, was my first Broadway show as a dancer. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. How did you make the transition from being a dancer to being a choreographer? Was it Spamalot you did? What was your first show?
Spamalot was the first Broadway show that I choreographed. And what happened was, I was in 8 shows as a Broadway dancer, and I always had like director head, so I'd find myself, sitting around going like, ooh, I would do it this way, or I do it that way. And I actually kind of got tired of going like, oh my God, I'm that person. I need to stop
directing.
that. I need to stop like being that person. I go in the cast room and go like, what are they thinking? No, but you know what I mean? But that's where I feel like I learned how to do what I do, as opposed to just like sitting there and, no one had cell phones in rehearsal. So instead of reading magazines, I would watch how they put it together. And I think that's where I learned so much about doing it. And, when I was in Seussical, the musical, I saved all my money that I had and said, I'm going to just do a presentation. I'm going to do 3 numbers, and I'm going to invite everyone I've worked with to see it. And they came, and that's when I got my first job. It wasn't Spamalot, it was a regional theater job. But it was crazy. It started with me going like, you know what? I need to be creative somehow, as opposed to, being in the chorus right now. And I booked space in a dance studio on Wednesday and Saturdays between shows, and the first, couple times I was just sitting there eating my sandwich going, what am I doing here? And before you knew it, I'd choreographed 3 numbers and got 25 dancer friends, and we did it.
That's amazing. Do you ever see yourself directing or choreographing?
People have been asking me this a lot, because They think I'm a lot
Because
like Casey.
because you're young Casey?
Yeah, I guess so. I honestly, I haven't thought about it. No, I'm so overwhelmed right now with what's been happening with our show in a good way that my brain isn't thinking about like how I would direct it. Also, he's very good, so I'm not sitting in the back room saying, this guy.
You're like, yeah, that's what I was saying to Ashley the other night. What does he think?
I would do it better. No, I haven't. Totally down the line, absolutely. There's a lot more I want to do with my acting career right now, for sure, but we'll see.
Well, did you see any of Casey's work before you were cast in Book of Mormon? Did you ever see
of Mormon?
Drowsy Chaperone? Or?
No, I didn't. I was barely in New York City before that. I'm from Georgia, and we never came to the city. And then I went to school in Pittsburgh, and then the month after I graduated from college, I toured with Book of Mormon.
Oh, right.
But
At least you didn't say I was too young to see any of those shows.
I'm so young. No. I of course listen to all the soundtracks though, and that's how people do get to experience Broadway shows is by the cast albums. Yeah.
Did you do high school theater? And what roles?
I was often miscast in high school theater. I played Riff in West Side Story. Are you just so intimidated by my face? I danced the hell out of it though.
I'm sure.
And then I was like Curly in Oklahoma, and I like broke my ankle on opening night at Theater Macon. Yeah, but I still did the show the next day.
What? With a broken ankle?
Yeah, maybe it was fractured. I forget. I have a terrible memory. But something happened, and the show went on, and an article came out in the local newspaper about it. My favorite role was Pseudolus in Forum, though, and that was like something I was like, oh, I really connected to this role. He's so fun and entertaining, and that's something I'd love to do again eventually.
There's talk about bringing it back to Broadway.
Yeah, I know. I got to push Josh Gad out of the way, I guess. Right?
Story of my life. No. How old were you when you started training? I'm actually curious for both of you when you started dancing and how the discipline of training for something so intense led you to Broadway.
I started actually in ballet when I was 3 years old.
Wow.
My mom said I was dancing all over our house, and she tried to put me into lessons, and I was turned away by a dance studio because she's like, boy, you shouldn't dance this young. And then so I went to this other studio, the Madison Studio of Dance Education. Jane Madison, who came to the show a couple weeks ago, said, of course, come in. And so I started ballet, and I was like a tiny little twink back then. And I definitely was like, that's where I thought I was going to take my whole career. I wanted to be a male dancer. And then I grew up to be a linebacker in size. And so eventually it just wasn't in the cards. And I started acting more, and it was more of my world because the dance world is a lot stricter and a lot it's just there's as much freedom, and so anyway, that's sort of how it started for me. But I'd always performed, and what's so crazy is that it was truly a hobby. How people play soccer or whatever, and it was something you just do after school, and it seamlessly just became my career, which is still mind-blowing to me because I'm getting paid to do what I just have always loved to do, and I think that's probably a similar case for everyone in the business. Yeah.
I don't know that everybody gets to just like graduate from college and
then go into
I know, I'm so lucky and
tour,
stupid, yeah.
Were you really young when you started training?
No, I was 13, which is not that young, and it's like it was great. I just finally found like I was in my body, so it was that was it for me.
I feel like that's a hard age, especially for a boy, to start to be like, I want to be a dancer.
But you know what? I didn't really fit in school, and and I was, I guess, effeminate for, you don't even know those things then, really. I just thought I was a normal kid, and the thing is, I just didn't fit in. And then one of the girls at school who was in one of my English classes said, you know what? There's this junior theater place over here that I think you would really love. And I, was a dancing Indian in Annie Get Your Gun, and I was probably pretty terrible, but I really had the best time. I felt like I just finally sort of found my pack, and that was it. Like I could care less about high school after that.
What's your favorite part about being in the Mean Girls family? You're the patriarch of this Mean Girls family.
I just, for me, it's I'm so emotional about it lately. Surprise, surprise. It's watching people grow. That's what it is. It's watching people, remembering their first audition, seeing where they are now, seeing, some of the kids that did prom in Atlanta in the show now, and just seeing how they're, growing up in 2 years, and, it's all of that. That to me is the best part. And also just, meeting new people, meeting Tina and Jeff and Nell was awesome, and getting to collaborate with them and solve problems together and be on the same page was really super special. And then, the other part for me is again, it's like going back to family. I don't know, I'm stuck on this, but all of the design team, Greg Barnes and Scott Paskin, Ken Posner, and Brian Ronan, as well as Terry Purcell, the wardrobe supervisor. We've all worked together so many times now, and so it's a very easy, wonderful thing that we all sort of know each other, and we have like we just know how to talk to each other. So that is the best part. And John McGinnis and Casey Hushin, who are my associates, who are the best. They're like my best friends in the world, and also I get to work with them every day, and like life does not get better than that.
When you wear two hats like you do on this show, your associates are especially
They're
important.
so important.
They have to be able to think with your brain.
Yeah, one of them has to be in that other room while I'm in that room. So I need to be able to trust them, and I totally do, completely.
You mentioned wardrobe, and I just would like to take a moment. Damien's wardrobe is so fantastic. I want his entire T-shirt collection.
Everyone says that
Same.
too.
I know.
It's so funny.
People talk about my T-shirts more than my performance, to be honest. No,
that T-shirt you wore on stage was so good.
Everyone asks if they're mine. I'm like, no, they are costumes that I have to leave at the show. But it started. We were doing the lab, which I don't know if anyone knows what a lab is, but basically it's before it actually goes into production. We do the whole show in a rehearsal room,
stage the whole thing,
and then we do it. We do various performances. And during one of our presentations, I wore a Cher shirt. I had gotten on. We were on tour, and we went to go see Cher in concert in Louisville, Kentucky. And so we all bought these crazy T-shirts that had our huge face on the front. And so I wore that shirt. I was like, Damien would wear this. And then Greg Barnes was watching. He's like, that's what we're going to do. And so it sort of became this whole thing about how Damien's a celebrity worshiper, and he is like adores like old school like divas, and then also RuPaul's Drag Race. Like he totally would watch that show. It's 2018, versus like 2004. And so that became his whole thing. And I hold this picture of George Michael that I sing to, which it's cool because Damien is still an outcast, as cool and savvy as he thinks he is. He's definitely a part of the Art Freaks group. So he likes a little bit of a dated reference,
Yeah. Well, do you have an answer about like your favorite moment or not a favorite moment in the show, although I wouldn't object to hearing that either, but like the thing that you sort of hold dearest to your heart about being part of this Broadway family?
Well, I mean, obviously watching Casey work, like he said, it is such a family and such a group, and to see how well people can work together and they're just be really good people versus not, But also for me right now to be originating a role in a new Broadway show is such a checkbox, you know what I mean? For me, it's like a dream to know that forever, like I will have created the role of Damien in Mean Girls the musical, and then it's done everywhere. It's community theaters. It's how it reaches people, and then I'll be on the cast soundtrack. It's just little things like that you never think about meaning so much, but it really does, and it's such a dream. Yeah.
Being in the audience of this show is a dream. I can't even imagine what it must be like to be a part of it. One of the most fun shows on Broadway. I've seen it multiple times. I will go back and see it as many times as they'll let me through those doors. Congratulations on Mean Girls.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
for having us.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Today, oh my gosh. I think that when I did that interview about a year ago, actually it was before last year's Tony, so it was, like a good 14 months ago. I think I'd seen Mean Girls like 3 or 4 times, and now I think I've seen it like 8 or 9 times, and I keep going back. It's really, really that good. Speaking of that, the source of that interview from 14 months ago and all the interviews today, I want to thank Verizon Media and Build Series for giving me permission to air the interviews that I did on their platform. And of course, I want to thank the whole Mean Girls team because the publicists over there, in addition to the cast and creatives, have been so generous with me. Mean Girls is going on tour starting in September. So while you may not see these actors, you will see Casey Nicholaw's incredible work. And speaking of Casey and big blockbuster musicals, his musical The Prom, which you may have heard of, is going on tour. It's also being made into a movie by Ryan Murphy. So keep your eyes and ears open for all of that. Gray Henson is still performing in Mean Girls, so get to the August Wilson Theater to see him. I also want to give you some heads ups about what's coming up on Laura Heywood Interviews. I've got some really exciting people coming on. Ari Afsar, who has been in Hamilton, has actually written a new musical called Jeanette about a suffragist named Jeanette Rankin, and she's coming in next week, followed by Jordan Gelber from the original cast of Avenue Q and Elf. He's been in Elementary on CBS and is a recurring character on Law & Order SVU. And then Ryan Redmond, who is currently playing Olaf in Frozen, was also in If Then and made her Broadway debut in Bring It On, the musical. Now, Bring It On, if you don't know, is a musical based on the film franchise of the same name, although it has a brand new original story. It was one that, it was what Lin-Manuel Miranda worked on between In the Heights and Hamilton. And man, the actors that were in that, there's so many that have gone on to such incredible things, including Taylor Louderman, who we heard from earlier, and the next interview that I'm going to play from Mean Girls, which is Kate Rockwell. She is just one of the smartest, sweetest, most wonderful people on Broadway, and playing Karen Smith, she's pretty great at being pretty dumb. And so we got to talk about that. She is a musical theater nerd to the core. In fact, she also has a great solo album called Back to My Roots, which is a reference to the fact that she always plays blondes, but is not actually a blonde. But she also always plays these sort of modern poppy musical roles, even though her real loves are Sondheim, etc., the sort of old school stuff. So I'm really excited to bring you a portion of my conversation with Kate Rockwell. I'm Laura Heywood, and this is Laura Heywood Interviews. Today's guest, Kate Rockwell, is currently starring in Mean Girls, the musical on Broadway, as the not-so-smart but very lovable Karen Smith. And while her character may be, and I say this with complete respect, the most vacant blonde on Broadway, Kate herself is a savvy superstar. We have so much to discuss, and I'm so happy you're here. Welcome, Kate Rockwell.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Karen Smith, your character, because as I said in the intro, like, you are a very smart, savvy woman, and Karen is not.
She's not.
I mean, she has her
She
moments.
has other nice qualities.
And how would you describe those qualities?
I actually like to say that Karen is, my expression I've come up with is she's singularly focused. So, you know, like when you have if you have a dog and you have a treat, there's nothing else happening in the world. Like an atom bomb could be going off in the corner and the dog is only looking at the treat. That's Karen. Karen is very good at focusing on whatever Karen has chosen to focus on. Most of the time it's her hair, or if there's a boy in the room, him. So unfortunately, she doesn't always choose the best things to focus on, but she's just very good at focusing. She's admittedly not very bright. She's okay with that. That's not something she aspires to. But she ends up having, and without giving away too much about the show, she ends up having a really unique perspective on the world, on her world, and on the world of Mean Girls, and is able to sort of share something with Katie on her journey at the end that is really helpful. And I think she's able to have that perspective because she just doesn't get caught up in anything else. She is just in her own bubble, and she sees things in her own way.
She also has a show-stopping line about the role that boys play in girls and their development, which again, I won't spoil it, but I've been to the show twice, and both times the audience leapt to their feet at Karen's line, sort of calling out the boys.
Some things that are happening out there in the society.
Also, if high schools taught emojis as a foreign language, I think Karen would probably be the valedictorian.
Give it a few more years. I hear we've dropped cursive now, so we have space in the curriculum to start teaching communication through emoji. She likes to communicate through emojis. I think, without giving away the joke, I think that it makes her feel understood. I think emojis are super, super simple, and they mean one thing and one thing only. And I think Karen connects to that.
I think on the Mean Girls Instagram, there's a video where you, as Karen, are talking to the camera and you're like, don't tell anyone, but, and I don't remember what they all were, but one of them was fried shrimp emoji.
Yep. Can you imagine what that message might be?
Did you know? My question is, did you as Kate know what the message was?
I wasn't given a translation for that message. So
What's your motivation?
Yeah, I decided that it had a specific meaning. I'm almost terrified to share it because I feel like it takes the fun out of you know what I'm actually
you don't
thinking,
have to. I was just
no, I can't. I had my own personal motivation for what that was, but it's so I think the hope is that only I understand what that's supposed to be.
I want Karen Smith to have a Twitter account where she just posts like her feelings on what's going on in the world or thoughts of the day, but just uses emojis.
Absolutely.
So we may have to collaborate on like a spoof Karen Smith.
I think we could come up with something
account.
good. Yeah,
that would be great.
absolutely.
How much did you go back to the source material, both the movie and the original book, which actually is a nonfiction book that Tina used as the inspiration for the film?
Yeah, it's really a guide to help parents navigate their children's process of going through emotional development and relationships in high school primarily, but also junior high. I because of the role that I am playing, I didn't use this. I have read the book, but it was a while back, and I didn't really go back to it because I think it's important that we not get ahead of our characters. And because I'm not 17, I already survived all of that, thank God. Yeah, no, really. So I like to try to stay as involved in the moment as I can. Which really means not allowing myself to get too far into this is how to handle, this is into the cerebral part of it. And the same goes for the movie, actually. When we started this process, I could have done that whole movie for you, line by line, every word, and probably done all of the choreography and the action too. I haven't watched it since we started about a year ago now, because I don't ever want to feel like I'm doing an impersonation of Amanda Seyfried's work on stage. That would be inauthentic for me to do. I'm not good at impersonating people. But also, we've updated the piece, and we've created something that is intended to, while it honors its source material, it's intended to stand alone and be its own musical. So if you haven't seen the film, you still get a full story when you come and see the show. And if you have seen it, you already have more information to kind of feed into the story that we're giving you now. So it's important for me to make sure I'm doing my own version of it and bringing my own self and my own truth to the character and the story. So I've stepped away from the film a little bit. I'm lucky in the sense that I don't have a lot of mimic material, so there's not a lot of Karen Smith lines from the film that have translated into the musical. I have all new material that Tina's written me, mostly because, as with comedy goes, you don't want to know the punchline before it happens. So if I start a joke and you already know how the joke ends, you won't laugh with me because you already knew it. It won't catch you by surprise. So Tina was really passionate about making sure that stuff didn't just get kind of thrown back up in a second way. She wanted to do all new stuff.
It's done in this very delicate and kind of perfect way where the references, the most quotable lines still show up the way that, a band will play their greatest hits, but they pepper them into the playlist. And even something as ubiquitous now as social media wasn't around during the days of the film. And it's hard to imagine Karen without her emojis or, Regina George, as she says her name, without her cell phone.
Heaven forbid, Gretchen without a cell phone. She has it in every scene.
I mean, she's even
in
got
that photo.
It
I know.
Here,
It's true. It's incredible to think that film was, almost 15 years ago, which makes me a little nauseous. And I'm sure it makes Tina nauseous also. But the story that we were given with the source material and with even the original book, is still so important now, and it's still so relevant. So it's amazing to see that you can take something like that, update it 15 years later, and so much has changed culturally in 15 years. I mean, the internet and social media have adapted our culture in such a highly effective way. And so, but the core of the story is still exactly the same, and it's still just as important as it was in 2004 with or without the social media.
There will always be, unfortunately, cliques in high schools and mean girls and this unique ability for teenagers to manipulate each other and to hit right where it hurts. The thing about this show that I think is so brilliant is that it is simultaneously just a rip-roaring comedy where it feels almost like Regina is a cartoonish figure, right? But it also is incredibly hard-hitting when it comes to calling out true issues from, like drug use to bullying to, basically anything that a real high schooler would be going through. So I see people going in wanting a hearty belly laugh, and I see especially teenagers, going in needing to feel understood, and both audiences come out completely satisfied. And I don't know another show that's done both of those things simultaneously so well.
I think it's such a statement about Tina's ability to look at the world around her, because she is so adept at identifying truisms and identifying our human behavior. And then what really makes her special is that she can turn it around and identify it or show it to you in a way that makes you both immediately understand what she's trying to say and also laugh hysterically at yourself for doing exactly what she said you're doing.
Yeah.
Not to like go into the number too much, but there's a song about Halloween in the show that I do, and it's sort of it's not a comment, but it also is a comment on young girls and how we can, and we can dress up as anything we want as long as it's sexy. The only thing that really matters is that the costume is sexy. And it's such a real thing. And it's like, oh my God, that's exactly what I did when I was a kid. Like, I didn't care what I could have been like a box of packing peanuts. As long as I was a sexy box of packing peanuts, who cares? Like, that was what was important to us. And they're writing the way that and Nell as well, Nell Benjamin, who did the lyrics alongside Jeff and Tina, the way that they are able to make us acknowledge our own like sort of silly isms that we have, while also still making sure we know that they're real is a unique talent. And not every writing team is able to do that.
So I want to squeeze one more in, and that is, I know you're really passionate about rescue animals, and you have the two cutest little doggies I've ever seen.
I do.
Will you just tell us a little bit about your dogs and the importance of rescuing animals?
Yes, I have two rescue dogs. I have a little French Bulldog Boston Terrier mix named Mabel. She's 10 years old, and I got her from the Humane Society of New York way back when. And then we just a year ago adopted Bessie, who is a boxer American Bulldog mix. Her heritage is a little harder to know. We got her, she was 4 years old, we think. She came from rural Georgia, and she is 60 pounds, and like we call her the bus because she's just so awkward, and she like runs into stuff and knocks things over, and she has just no spatial awareness. And they're my babies, my little fur babies. I love them so much. And they're so special, and thank God I have them because they make me laugh every single day.
And remind everyone your Instagram so we can all follow you and the doggies.
It's Kate Rockwell NYC is my Instagram. I don't have a Twitter, so you're just stuck with my pictures of my dogs, and you will get a lot of pictures of dogs.
Congratulations. Mean Girls is currently playing at the August Wilson Theater on Broadway. Congratulations on your Drama Desk nomination.
Thank you.
And here's to lots more to come.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. She is the best, Kate Rockwell. And remember, all of these interviews are available on video, lauraheywoodmedia.com. Thanks again to Build Series NYC for giving me permission to play the audio here on Laura Heywood Interviews. Coming up next, we have Donnie, if you're listening live. And please give me a follow at BroadwayGirlNYC if you are on the socials. I'm at Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Don't follow me on Snapchat, even though you might find me there. I literally never post anything. I want to thank DNR Studios for giving me the platform to do this, and a special, special thanks to those of you who contribute the $6.95 a month it takes to become a patron. For those patrons, you can listen live. You can also get exclusive access to all of my content a week early. But it was also important to me that people who don't have $6.95 a month to contribute get to still hear the show and take part. So free podcasts via Apple Podcast. And if you do find that at some point you can afford to throw $6.95 a month at me so I can keep making the show, please visit dnrstudios.com/Laura. I'm Laura Heywood, and I'm so proud to be making Laura Heywood Interviews.
3